Hello. All right. So I'm hoping this works. It says that the audio is going, but there's no one here. So in case this video gets watched later, all right. So I figured I'll use this time to just kind of rant about Genesis a little bit. I've told this over and over again, but kind of the history of Genesis and where we began. Really, it does start. I mean, game design started when I was really little, but all right. I don't know what to talk about. It's kind of weird talking to myself, waiting for people to show up, if anyone shows up. I'm doubting anyone will, but I'm gonna try. So oh my goodness, this is gonna be super boring to rewatch at some point. So early versions of game design. When I was really little, I used to make RPG games, and they were kind of interesting. Not the most informative thing or kind of most interesting thing, but regardless, I used to make these RPGs, and some people would play them. Most of them, I would get halfway through writing the rulebook and then kind of toss them. But it was an iterative process. Kept on making new games, discarding them, making new games, discarding them. And each time I would get a little bit closer to where I wanted to be and how I wanted to grow it. And then I don't know. Started playing Overpower, and that was a lot of fun. And during the Overpower process, actually, me and my brothers and my cousins would do things like oh, there's a message. Oh. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know anything about this kind of stuff. Let's see if that brings anyone. Yeah. Played a lot of Power, made a lot of cards for that, and then used to yeah, I don't know what really to talk about. Anyways, let's just talk about Genesis. Let's skip all that early stuff and just talk about Genesis. So I've been told that I'm not very enthusiastic, and I think part of that is I feel weird talking to myself in an enclosed room. So I need to imagine that I'm talking to people and I'm sharing a story. So let's talk about ideas for Genesis. Right now, we're looking at Genesis in a closed system where it's just Genesis with the card game. And I want to eventually start exploring what it means to be Genesis and other things. So, what do I mean by that? Genesis. Oh, this is super weird. Someday someone's going to find this old video and laugh at me for it, but that's okay. I wonder if after it's done streaming, I can not share it. Okay. Okay, so going back to that, right now we're just focusing on the card game. So we did alpha, and the goal of alpha was to see if the game would sell at all. So we made the starter kit, and the goal was we'll take it to the convention and see if it sells at all. And from there, iterate and figure out how do we grow it to a much larger product with booster packs and all that kind of stuff. And our goal was to take 1 year between 2017 and 2018 to do all that development so that in 2018, October, we would launch alpha. But that didn't happen because the demand was so much higher than we expected. So we ended up actually completing alpha during the summer of 2018. And then we launched beta in the fall. And the idea there was okay, all the artwork was done. We knew that we didn't have the best system in place for Genesis. There were so many tweaks we wanted to do, so much refinement to the art. We needed the other champions, and the goal of beta was to deliver a much more polished product that at first glance more people are interested in using it and playing the game. And we're seeing that kind of result already. We have a lot more people buying into the beta product than we ever did for the alpha product. And that was pretty cool. And then yeah. We had the beta product go live. And then, all right, so what are we planning to do for the next set? This is weird. Was there something I could show you about what we're doing? There's not a whole lot. What options do we have here? Pop out chat. You know what? I'm just going to go through the card list for Welcome to JLR because I don't know what else to really talk about, and there's no one else here, so I'm just going to talk to myself. Champions. So we're running Idris still. All the same 8 champions are Idris, Malik, Nubia, Raha, Kendra, Rain, Fonglong. And new Jalarian cards. So we have Silver Like Recluse. It's gonna be 3 chi, 8 aura, 1 health, 1 attack. Hi, there's someone actually here. Nope, they're gone. Hello? Hey, Jake. I'm really just by myself. I did not plan this very well. But I trying to figure out something to talk about. Do you have any questions? Can you even hear me? Oh no, he's gone. Okay, cool. I don't really know what to talk about besides who's your favorite champion to play. Well, first off, I really appreciate you giving me something to talk about because I was kind of lost for myself. Right off the bat, I really like playing with Rain. I think the coolest thing about my playstyle is I like playing a ninja style where I engage in a lot of combat and I don't rely so heavily off of summons to play with. But then it's a very risky play because when you're there, you're very exposed in the center of all the chaos that's happening. So the thing I really like about Rain is you can come in whenever you want. You can jump out almost as quickly. And then comboing up with cards like Smoke Bomb and Chrono Walker, you can play super defensively without and still be very aggressive at it. That's a lot of fun for me. And outside of Rain, I don't know. There's something I don't like playing with the summoners as much. I find that playstyle too streamlined and it's a little bit too easy. But I get why on competitive level, a lot of people play with more of the summoner type champions. So like Idris or Long, because it's just a lot easier to drop a big creature and attack with it compared to putting yourself in the middle of all the combat. But I think it's a lot more fun and a lot more risky to play with the fighters. So Rain, my second would be Raha. Playing with the archer is also super fun. And at the same time, she has the same options with evasion. So Chrono Walker and Smoke Bomb. But with some of the cards that we're bringing out in the next set, there's going to be a lot more evasion, a lot more ways to get out of things that you couldn't before, or just to defend yourself. So all champions are going to have much stronger playstyle to come up with. Yeah, a lot of so. I think movement is one of the few things that make Genesis so different than any other game, and just playing statically and keeping your card where you are at the very beginning of the game can get a little boring. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. But the more you move, the more you interact with the board, definitely I feel like the more interesting the game gets. So I love lots of mobility. I love a lot of hindrance of mobility, or even things like rampage toss where you can take someone and throw them, because it allows you to have that back and forth kind of conversation with your opponent. I'm going to do this. Well, I'm going to respond with that. I'm going to respond with that. So going back and forth in that regards is really, really interesting. And I guess that's part of the reason why I don't like playing with summons as much, is because as a champion, you kind of sit in the back and let your creatures come out and fight for you. It's like, why don't you come out and do it? Why don't you kind of engage in combat a little bit more? So yeah, I love mobility. I love scaring my opponent too. That's why I think Malik's really cool, or why Rain's really cool, because they hit for a lot really, really easy. So yeah. Yeah, Rain, Malik, and they just do a lot of damage. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Any other questions? Wouldn't you find that having a single character to play makes it difficult to be active through a round, since you have only one round before exhausting? Meanwhile, other players have several. Yeah, I do. And actually, that's one of the things we want to tackle and look at when it comes to cards for the next set. How do we give players who have fewer rounds more interactivity? And I think it does make it more challenging, but it keeps, yeah, I guess that's one of the bigger things. But then the more you can optimize your mobility, hey, Steve, the more you can optimize your mobility in combat, the more you can make your one round really, really productive. And that's where one of the challenges comes, and that's one of the strengths that comes into those type of decks. People really hate it when you do something like teleportation and follow it up with chain lightning, because it's just so much more devastating than having a creature come out and attack, because you can see the creature coming, but the chain lightning, all those kind of things, if your opponent can't see it coming, it's a lot scarier to them. But as I was saying, we want to make the cards in the next set give opportunities for people to take multiple turns, do multiple things. So one of the cards we're actually coming out in the next set is a card called Adrenaline. And what it does is just removes your exert token off of you. So you can take a turn and then remove that exert token and then take another turn, which can be really killer, especially if you're playing with a heavy hitter like Malik. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? If not, I can just start going through some of the cards for the next set that I'm really excited about. Yeah, is playing a single landside a bad idea in a Malik deck? So, all right, so running a single landslide, it's not that bad of an idea. It's just your odds of drawing it are really slim, right? You have a 1 in 50 chance of drawing the card. So if you look at it just kind of from a mathematical equation, the average game comes out to about 5 rounds. So you're drawing about 5 cards, plus your opening hand of 5 cards. So you're drawing 10 cards out of your full 50 card deck. So you have and if you only running 1 copy, then your odds of getting that 1 card within those 10 are very, very slim. So it's not a bad idea, because on the rare chance that you draw it and you can use it, it's going to be such a powerful option. But at the same time, it's not, getting more is a little bit better. So it's finding that thin line between consistency and having a nice edge solution to whatever your problem is. So yeah, if you have the landslide, run it. Maybe run 3, but it's not bad. Next question: what's the most interesting card character suggestion you've had from the players? I'm trying to think. We've had a few, and I would write them down for a while, and after a while, we actually started turning those card ideas into actual cards. One of them that was really cool was one that deals 1 damage to a creature within the card's awareness. So it'd be the spot right in front of you, and then you remove the exert token off that creature. So it's kind of like cracking the whip to make them start doing stuff right away. I thought that was a really cool card idea. And I think there's a plan to put that into a future set. And if I could, I'm gonna try to push for that, because I think it's a really cool concept of like provoking your creature to do more and be more aggressive. All right. The next question, how are you dealing with certain champions being more powerful than others? So champions on their own, there are some that are numerically just stronger than other ones, but it comes down to the deck and the card pool. So right now, the card pool is very limited, and it makes it that we can already see and predict what the strongest decks would be. But as the card pool starts opening up, more and more deck combinations are going to come out. Certain champions are going to rise to the top. It comes down to exploring each champion, each combination. I don't think there's any champion that's completely unplayable. Actually, Stevo, you were one of the people who proved to me that Nubia has a really, really strong deck style, because I didn't see that one coming. So I don't think there's any champion that's unplayable. There are certain that rise to the top, and it's not because of the champion. It's because of the cards they have access to. So as we add more cards, the champions will just get stronger. And it's always one of those things with collectible card games. The meta changes as the game goes on. So whatever was the strongest deck style now, as the next set comes out, it won't be the strongest deck style. And I can already tell you things like once more champions have access to range attack, the angel becomes a little bit weaker. As stronger spells come out, things like the scorpions might become a little bit weaker. So as of right now, yeah, there are some champions that are at the top, but that's just the current meta. And as we add more cards, that'll change. All right, next one. How many would you suggest running? Because you wouldn't want too many. Oh, I assume that's related to the landslide, Jake. Yeah, so it comes down to the probability or how often you want to see that card show up in a game. If you're running 4 to 5 landslides, you're probably going to get one every single game. I wouldn't play more than one because yes, they are consuming a lot of your aura. But at the same time, if you're running a Malik deck, run a lot of things that cost energy over aura, because your timeline, like I was saying, if you're only playing 10 cards out of your deck, that means you have 40 cards that you can exert. So basically you have 40 points of energy that you can pay off. But a lot of cards have a reduction. Malik reduces the cost of a lot of energy costs. So Rampage Toss, you would be able to play more than 10 of those. So I would run heavy Rampage Toss, Rain of Arrows, or even Cross Punches, Side Swipes, Vampire Kisses, these type of things that cost energy, because then you can put in those heavy costing aura stuff and still have the aura when you need it. It depends. If you could also run a lot of cheaper aura cards, so Hunting Hounds, Burrooks, those type of things to be more consistent with the creatures you're coming out with, or run more of the heavier stuff like Primordial Force or Landslide or Meteorite and rely more heavily on energy. I would say it comes down to that decision. Which of your resources are you going to spend most of your deck's attention on? But yeah, that would be my suggestion on how many to run. Will we see more champions, specific cards, and feature sets such as angels or scrolls? I assume you meant those as like two different things. So for the next set, I can tell you that there are no more tribal cards coming out. So the Primordial Force, Angel Retribution, Demon Skull, and Purifying Wave will be reprinted in the next set. For future sets, I don't know. I'm guessing the set that comes after Welcome to Jailara. So the next set's called Welcome to Jailara. The one after that is called Raise. And Raise, I would expect probably another set of tribal cards to come out. But it comes down to set size. The reason why we don't want to release too many tribal cards is because you look at it from opening up a booster pack perspective. Where in Magic, when they have the multicolored cards, even if you couldn't play a card you opened, you could splash in the color you needed so you could play that card. So every card was playable. It just wasn't wise to run too many different colors. Where in here, if I'm playing with Raha, I literally cannot put the other 3 tribal cards, the Primordial Force, Scrolls, or Purifying Wave, into my deck. So if there's too many of those when you open up a boost pack, it just wouldn't be, it'd be kind of annoying opening up cards that you literally couldn't play with. I know you can make the same justification for the cards in the other affiliations, but we try to lower the amount of cards that are unplayable, or what are your odds of getting unplayable cards. So I want to make sure that the experience of opening up boost packs is as enjoyable as possible, and that future things like booster drafts are also as enjoyable and as playable as possible. So I wouldn't be releasing too many tribal cards, but every now and then I think they're kind of cool, especially as we go to other parts of the world of Jaylara and we start seeing other affiliation combinations. The new champions will get their tribal cards. So the new champions are going to come out and raise. As of right now, they're planned to be correlated to the current tribes that exist. So Malik and Idris are going to get a 3rd partner, and same with Raha and Nubia. Each of the champion combinations are going to get a new champion to join the ranks. So the way we design them, the champions, is each champion on a meta level is designed to be either a summoner, a fighter, or a caster. And it doesn't mean you have to play that champion that way. They're just designed with that in mind. For example, Idris is actually designed to be a caster, not a summoner, but a lot of people run her as a summoner. So for each tribe, they only have 2 of the 3 meta types designed already. So the new champion will be of the new meta type. So Idris and Malik, Idris is your caster, Malik's your fighter. So the new champion will be your summoner. So the new champions are going to be part of the current tribes, so they'll have access to the current tribes cards. But what I'd want to do, and what we're planning to do for the next set, is instead of releasing new tribal cards, releasing HE cards within the same affiliations. So giving Thymos a new HE and giving Bellum a new HE, stuff like that. Just so more champions have access to the cards that you open in the packs. Cool. So I know stuff that have come up in the past. Oh, okay. So I have new cards to show you. Not new cards to show you. I don't know if I can even share screen or anything like that, but I have new cards that we've already started working at. Oh, yes. Thank you. It is my birthday. Thank you. So cards, there are a bunch of cards that we'll see reprint between beta and into Welcome to Jaylara. Things like Meteorite is going to see reprint. I see him with Demon's Rage, Death Eater. There's a bunch of cards that are going to see reprint, but then there's a bunch of new cards. Yes, thank you, Jay. That are brand new. So some of the cards I'm really excited about because we've already gotten the art for. One of the cards is called Displace. It's an Axon card. I'm just trying to find it right now. It's Axon. It's a spell. It costs 10 ore to play, and it's at action speed, and then you just move to a spot around you. But the art's really cool because it looks like, it reminds me of Nightcrawler's teleportation in the X-Men movies. So you get that puff of smoke in the background and then rains in another spot, and the smoke's kind of there as well. So I really like that card, and it has really interesting play value because now you can, wherever you are, you can beckon a summon right beside you and then displace yourself right behind that summon. So now you can use that as a wall. So Displace is really cool, or it allows you to set yourself up, like move on an angle so that you can be casting your tsunamis or chain lightnings in a really strategic way. So stuff like that's really cool to me. Scorpions. I've talked a bit about reprinting Scorpions. We will see. There's two sides to that coin. So Scorpions are super, super strong. And I know that the value of them are always going to stay relatively high. but I I don't want to reprint them just because of how off curve they are. They are way too cheap for how strong they are. But at the same time, I do want to. I don't want them to skyrocket in price on the secondary market. So it'll be a delicate balance. It might be one of those things that partway through the world, if some of the cards are getting real expensive, we look at reprinting them just to reduce their secondary market's cost. But I also kind of hate messing around with that just for the sake of messing around with that. I don't know. It's a delicate line to tread. So nothing's written in stone. And that's why I tell to a lot of people, no concept, nothing's fully rejected, nothing's written in stone. It's just I don't, as of right now, I don't see myself wanting to reprint the Scorpion. I'd rather create new cards that are more interesting and do kind of more powerful things. For example, one of the creatures that we have proposed, I don't know if it's going to see its way into the set or what's going to happen with it, but it's a creature that has an air attack of 1, so it deals 1 damage, and if that damage is successful, it pushes the creature back, pushes whoever it hit back 1 spot. So it's like a walking gust, and that's really cool because having creatures with a little bit more flair, a little bit more intrigue to them, I think will add add a lot of value to the game. Future replacement for the elementals. So the reason, if not everyone knows this, the reason why we removed the elementals from going from beta to welcome to JLR is because they are just not cost effective. Paying 13 aura to play an earth elemental, fire elemental, you're not really getting bang for your buck. What we ended up creating is a creature in the Jalarian tribe. So it's not part of any of the affiliation. Every champion can play the card. It's called Jalarian Hound. It's 10 aura for a 3 health, 3 attack. So every champion has access to this one card, which will allow you to everyone can build a lot stronger decks, because not having access to a decent 5 chi summon can really hurt a champion. So giving access to this one creature who's relatively cheap, pretty decent, really, really changes the game a lot. It makes the game definitely a lot more aggressive. So we ended up making a 3 chi summon, a 5 chi summon, and a 6 chi summon, all in Jalara, so that everyone has access to it. So you can do a lot more. Deck building becomes a little bit more easier. Everyone can play with summons. So that's our plan for mitigating the issue with some of the summons, kind of weaker than other ones. All right. Other cards I'm really excited about. So something we're going to be doing with the alterations in the next set is using them partly for game mechanics. I mean, mainly every card we make is for game mechanics, but another use for them is to talk about the story, because what we're going to do with the art and on spells and on techniques are going to be mainly champions versus champion artwork. So you'll see stuff like the artwork for Left Hook is Fong punching Malik, and it's kind of cool because it gives you a good story piece of what's happening in the game. But we also want to explore the world of Jalara, and that's challenging to do when everything's happening within the arena. So the way we do this, one is through the summons, and the other is through the alteration cards. So every affiliation will have 2 alteration cards, and one will be dedicated to one of the tribes that has access to that affiliation. The other one will be dedicated to the other tribe. So, for example, Bellum is access to both Vadhis, which is Raha Nubia, and Aja, which is Fallen Long. So one of the Bellum alterations will be dedicated towards Vadhis. So the card is Walls of Vadhis, and the other one is dedicated towards Ajna, which is Draco Caverns. For archetypes. So what I was looking at more for archetypes, yes, we'll see. I don't know if we'll see more angels. We won't see a whole lot more angels. So the thing is, for archetypes, we'll see more angels, dragons, hounds as archetypes. So we'll see more hounds, wolves, things like that, but it won't be an archetype. The archetypes I was looking at, and I'm mirroring more how Magic does it, but at the same time, Magic is not a good example of how Genesis works. But the three archetypes in Magic are control, aggro, and combo. And that's how they kind of classify their cards and they classify the play styles. I know in Yu-Gi-Oh! They classify it around different creatures. Different creatures have like meta relevant decks for them. Genesis itself is purely an aggressive game, and I need to figure out, okay, what are the different types of aggression that champions go through? So I think there's face-to-face aggression. Yeah, they are play styles, but I guess what I'm more looking at is how do you classify the way the game's being formed, more or less? And I don't think it's as easy to say like creature types aren't really an archetype, because I don't want to create cards that say, oh, if you're playing with hounds, your hounds get stronger. I don't know if that's a real thing that's relevant for Genesis. But like going back to Magic, the way they kind of do their different things is like the different control styles you can have are like big creatures and then locking down your opponent, or like you drop big creatures and you support them, or you drop like long would be an example of like dropping one big creature and supporting that creature a lot. So I don't know. I'm still looking into this question of what are archetypes, but I don't think it really makes a lot of sense until we get to a point where we have more competitive play and we can define what archetypes really are in the game. So it's just something more I'm thinking about, but I don't know how to define them just yet. I know that's not the best answer to it. It's something I'll think about more. Cool. What else can I... Batch of cards that work together, like power, summon, or control, or spell defense. Yeah, that's what I was thinking for like... I think one of the big issues I have right now is I'm jumping the gun. The card pool is so small. The number of real competitive players is so small. I think I'm just trying to define things too early on in the process. Let's wait until Welcome to JLR comes out, and then we have a better sense of what archetypes will show up, and how the game design team kind of approaches things. I know that they want to look at things like damage structures. So doing things like making a deck around holy damage, or making a deck around dark damage, making a deck around fire damage. So that's something we're looking at. But yeah, I think we just jumped the gun, and I need more data and more research before we can actually define what archetypes there really are. Cool. Trying to think of some other things that are really cool in the next set that I'm excited about. Decoy Rabbit's coming back. I know a lot of people really like Decoy Rabbit. So that's the reprint. And it's going to be interesting because I have no idea how to get the art team to do that artwork, because I love what Ramiana did for the original artwork for Decoy Rabbit, but that doesn't really feel like it fits within the world of JLR right now. So figuring out how to redo it is going to be really, really interesting. Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. It's going to be fun kind of redesigning that. Yes, JC really loves the Decoy Rabbit. And so one thing we're also looking at are making some really interesting powerhouse spells things that deal a significant amount of damage, just so casters can be more of a playstyle or focus around playing spells. Because right now, the two major win conditions are either using techniques, things like, oh, we have a lot of people. Hi, everyone. Using things like bolt shot, using things like rain of arrows to do a lot of damage, and then just being aggressive as a champion. That's one approach of making decks. The other is dropping a lot of creatures, so either with angels or with scorpions. Those are the core ways of really kind of winning the game right now, but there's no real heavy hitting spells that do a lot. So one of the cards I'm really excited about is called Sandstorm, and it's a Axon spell. It has the awareness of front, so the same awareness as Tsunami, but it has 2 tiers to it, like how Meteorite has 2 tiers with it. So the bottom tier for 10 aura, you pick a single spot and deal 3 damage to everything on that spot. And then the top tier, you pick 2 spots and you deal 4 damage to everything on those 2 spots. But the spots have to be within that awareness. But the cool thing about this is it actually deals a decent amount of damage. Oh, okay. So Steve, your question, you heavily play bunnies. Will we see similar but not exactly like the rabbit or switch summons like Chrono? I don't think there's any strong attention to that. There's a new card called Grand Illusion, which will be able to do something like that. But I think there's going to be more of a focus around physically deking out combat. Stuff like how Dodge was, but more playable. The problem with Dodge was that it was at the 7 chi slot. So making something similar but on lower chi will definitely make it a lot more playable. So there's one card called Backflip. Its awareness is the spot right behind you. It's just a mini smoke bomb, basically, but in Thymos instead of Axon. So this allows Thymos champions to get out of combat a lot more. So that physical movement is going to be a big focus on moving forward. But I do love the decoy ability. I think it's a really, really cool concept. We were actually playing around with a champion having a built-in decoy ability, and it would cost 3 health and exert, and you could decoy with any summon around you or within your awareness, something like that. But thematically, it didn't work with that champion. But it was actually a really cool idea having a champion with a built-in decoy ability. Okay. So based on Vampiricus, can you explain a little how vampires fit into the world? Are those going to be summons at some point? Okay, so I guess it's a good time to kind of talk about the difference between summons and champions. So one big distinction we tried to do in Genesis is that champions are characters within races, and summons are creatures that don't have self-awareness. So there's a cognitive level difference between champions and summons. So there's only one creature type that can actually exist in both, and those are fiends. Fiends could either be champions or they can be summons. But besides that, there won't be any no one can cross that barrier. So even the angel will get, there's more to the angel than just it being a celestial creature, because it's a summon, it's not a champion. So it's actually missing that level of self-awareness. So that's going to be a whole thing that we'll get into future sets and stuff like that. But vampires are actually going to be a race. The story arc for Jailara is that at the beginning of time, there were these 5 mythical creatures. And in our languages, we would call them the Griffin, the Phoenix, Leviathan, Valkyrie, and the Dragon. And these 5 creatures went about and made the universe. So that's the universe of Genesis that we're looking at. But what happened afterwards is on the world of Jailara, each of these creatures, ancient creatures, ended up making their own creatures on the world that resembled them in different ways. So the Griffin made a lot of the more natural creatures. And then the Valkyrie ended up making a race called the Demons. and the Phoenix ended up making a race called the Elves. And when these two races started to intermingle and the bloodlines mix, other races came out of it. So the pure half breeds are humans. When they're half demon, half elf, it's a human. When a human and a demon have a child, that's a vampire. So a vampire is actually 3/4 demon. So how are they going to play into Genesis, the world, and the game? Eventually, I want to make champions that are vampires. I'm a huge fan of vampires. I always have been. So of course, I would want to bring them into the world in some way and make them into a race. So vampires are eventually going to show up as a champion in one way or another. And I have a couple in mind for future sets. And then that's kind of how I want to portray the vampires. So the vampires are going to have kind of the skin of a human. So it's going to be a lot more softer skin, much more human skin tones, but they're going to have certain elements that are more demonic. So things like sharper teeth. They're going to have the glowing smoke that comes out of their eyes because that's what demons have. That's the one similarity between Vampiric Kiss and Rain. If you look at the two, that they both have the smoke that's coming off of their eyes. And then their speed, their strength are going to be more demon-like. Their attitude towards the world is going to be a lot more demon-like because they have a lot larger lifespan. So for them, humans seem like pets almost, smart pets in a way. So that's the way I'm thinking about portraying vampires. But we'll get to that when the 5th and 6th set come around. So it'll be a little while. But yeah, that's the plan for vampires. So Jake, there's actually this huge backstory of the world. I spent a good year and a half, maybe 2 years, researching different mythologies, different lores, trying to figure out the entire world. One of the things that really frustrated me about a game like Magic was that how do creating humans exist in that world? I guess the way Magic does it is you use your mana to create this portal and these characters will walk through the portal. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. I didn't understand how you could call forth a human or an elf. Even calling forth something like a hound didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But putting that aside, calling forth something with the same cognitive awareness as you just really didn't make a lot of sense to me. So when I made Genesis, I was like, okay, I have to streamline this. It has to make a little bit more sense, especially since if you look at the flavor of the game, creatures go from your timeline, which is your deck, into your hand, which are your thoughts. And then from your thoughts, you use aura to take your thought and create reality. And if that's the case, it wouldn't make sense to create something that was smarter than you were. I guess we are kind of doing that with computers, but that's a whole other conversation. So I really wanted to make it that the creatures that you were calling out were somehow on a level lower than you. And that's the big difference between summons and champions. But one of the champions we'll be looking at in the next set, his name's Core, and he is a fiend who, through the interaction with aura, got cognitive awareness and became a champion. So that's going to be a really cool character to look at. And there's a bit of a preview of how that champion looks like in one of our art pieces. If you go look at, actually, it was the first art piece Damian did for us called Essence Drain. The creature that's there is going to become the champion in the future set. So yeah. So will summons ever have access to your thoughts in the future? So there's so much I want to do with summons. I'm so excited about doing some of these things. I do want to create this idea of, oh, my video's lagging. Okay, so I do want to create this idea of summons that are that can do a lot more. So summons who can bring out other summons, or summons who can play cards from your thoughts, summons who have access to your aura. I think that would be really cool. and there's no limitation to the stuff we can do. The biggest limitation we have is the fact that Genesis as a whole is such a new concept of gaming that it takes people so long to get used to it that we don't want to overcomplicate the game right now. The rules themselves or the mastery of the game is intense enough without creating cards that make the game more intense. So that's part of the reason why we've held back on some of the creative design for summons. But the idea of having a summon with access to your thoughts and access to your aura would be super cool. We've in the past we've played around with summons that when you beckon a summon, it actually beckons it around another one of the summons you control. So before we can get to that phase, we need to define the concept of allies and enemies. So that's something that will come out in the set called Raise, the keywords allies and the keyword enemies. So then you can have something that says all ally summons you control gain 3 health or something like that. Once you have ally summons, then you can start talking about teams a little bit better on the cards. So then your ally summon can play cards from your thoughts, or it can be a conduit of where spells being cast. So you go to play Tsunami, but instead of you playing it, one of your summons plays it. That would be super cool. And I really want to do that, but I need to hold back or then the game will get way too complex, way too early on. So one step at a time. Let's get more people playing the game first. And once we have a large enough audience that feels comfortable with the rule sets, we'll be good. Cool. Yeah, it's gonna be super cool. I'm so excited about stuff like that. Oh, so something that I find really fun is, especially working with the art team, a lot of time they create things that we weren't planning at all. But that piece is just so cool. There's some aspect of it that's so amazing that we got to make a card around it. So that's what happened with Core and Essence Drain. Damian just put so much attention to that one creature, and it looks so badass that I was like, okay, we got to turn this into a champion one way or another. But another piece he did was Rampage Toss. And that creature that's being held up was really cool that I actually made it into a card for the next set. And so it's a creature called Decaying Hound. And this was an opportunity of making a super big creature with a very low cost, but with a big drawback. So it's 13 aura, 6 chi. It has 4 attack, 6 health, but it has decay. So at the end of each round, it's losing 1 health. So it's a really, really cool way to make a cheap card that's really, really powerful. So thank you, Damian, for making that creature for us. Can you make the battlefield larger for 2v2 format? So you can. And the reason I don't recommend it is the larger the board is, the more space there is to run and hide, and the more the game starts fracturing. And you get to a point where players are no longer playing a multiplayer game. They're playing one-on-one or something like that, and people get split up. So the tighter the space, the more players are forced to interact with each other. Because if you think about the big reason why a lot of people increase the arena or why they want to, is because when they're playing, they feel like they're in a corner all the time. But that's the way the game should feel. It should feel like you're forced to engage. Because if you're not forced to engage, then you can spend too long just drawing cards and doing nothing for a very long period of time. So if you saw photos we put up on Instagram recently, we did play a 4-way free-for-all game where we expanded the arena. But what we did is we actually created barriers within the arena. So it was a really, really cool concept of creating, taking terrain from Warhammer and placing it on the board at the beginning of the game so that certain spots were considered occupied at the very, very beginning. And now you have this map that you need to navigate through. It was a lot of fun. It was really, really cool playing that. And it was a fun way to play 4-way free-for-all, because I haven't done that very often, because when you get 4 people, you want to do 2v2. But having certain spots occupied at the very beginning of the game really, really changes the perspective on what you do at each step and kind of what your play style is. So it really disrupts people who play one way every single time. So that's something I want to roll out with Welcome to Jaylara. So we'll get some more testing of that done. But with Welcome to Jaylara, I want to make official rules for 2v2. I want to make official rules for maps. And one thing that I'm working on is this concept of quests. So you could play a campaign mode almost, where you play for several hours, but it's this storyline that you go through compared to just playing the game as is. But it will require us to have a creative writer, and that's one of the challenges I'm having right now, is finding people to do some of the creative writing for me. Yes, I love Damian's work too. There's a reason why he gets a lot of the really awesome stuff to work on. And there's some cool stuff Damian's working on. I don't know if if he's okay with me spoiling it, but there's some stuff that he's working on right now that's super duper cool. What else am I excited about for the next set? When using Gus against a summoner champion whom is against the edge of the battlefield, they can't be affected by the trigger. Do they still take damage? Yes, so the damage actually has to happen first before the trigger even occurs. So how it would work, if you're looking at the rule set, is the cast ability will go onto the stack, and if it resolves successfully, then the push mechanic goes onto the stack. So the cast mechanic deals the 2 damage. The push mechanic goes to try to move them, but you can't move off of the arena, so the ability just goes away. So for Gus, the 2 damage always goes through. Yeah, so some of the stuff Damian's working on, that's really cool. So one, I'm super excited to talk about the fact that he's doing a little bit more of the of leading the art team, delegating assignments, figuring out who's strong with what. I really, really appreciate him taking that off my shoulder. But on top of that, it means that he gets to select some of the pieces he wants to work on. So one of the things he's going to be working on for the next set is new art for the Angel of Retribution, which we were talking about earlier, and it's going to be a huge thing for him to try to deliver on, because the Angel has been one of those iconic pieces about the game. It was our first like real high production value art pieces that we got, and from a very close friend. So I'm really excited that Damian's going to take this on, because everything he's done today has been gold. So I'm excited about that. The other is he's working on a creature right now, and he's making it into a 3D model first before making the artwork for it. So now that we'll have that 3D model, there's stuff we can do with it, which would be kind of cool, like 3D printing it and potentially having like an actual just something to put on your shelf, like a trophy type of thing. So that's really exciting. All around, he's been doing a lot of really, really amazing stuff. He's helping Philip, who's actually doing new artwork for all the 8 champions for the next set. So yeah, that's really exciting. We are almost done the artwork for the new artwork for Idris, which is absolutely amazing. And what else? Oh, and one thing that I'm sure a lot of you are really excited about, I mean, there's not a whole lot of us in this chat, but everyone's going to get excited about, is the brand new art for Cognitive Restriction. The card with some of the most powerhouse ability in the game is finally getting an art that represents that. So I'm super excited about that. That's one of those things that one day I'm going to blow up, turn it into a poster, and have it hanging in our place, along with, yeah, so much of the other artwork. But I'm really excited about these things. Yeah, so we have a few minutes left. Is there any last minute questions? Yeah, no. Is there anything else I can talk about that's super cool and pays tribute to the fact that some of you... Yes, Steve, I will be at your store tomorrow. Thursday, yes. Yeah, I'll be able to come by. So I guess kind of last minute things I'll talk about is we have sets. We have the next 6 sets kind of planned out, which I'm really excited about. And then afterwards, we'll see how the thing kind of comes about. So I know at least until 2022, we have stuff planned. So I'm really excited. Yeah, to share all that with you, talk about new ideas. And hopefully next time I do an AMA, we have a few more people attend, but you're always welcome to ask me questions at any time. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Yes, the 1-year anniversary at Heads or Tails is going to happen this Friday, which is super exciting because today is my birthday. This Friday is the company's birthday. The Sunday is my mom's birthday. November is just a really big month. So every year in November, expect more spoilers, expect more excitement, more hype. So thank you, everyone. And that's it for this AMA. Bye.